What is the best way to show the beauty and history of the Korean national costume Hanbok? By doing a Hanbok catwalk in London City. I'm Becky, an ambassador for Korean culture. On my socials, I'm known as Hanguk Hapa, and in this video, I will be sharing with you the history of the Korean national dress, Hanbok. On May the 31st, my friends and I took over Pall Mall during the Queen's Jubilee in London to showcase Korea's traditional costume, Hanbok. We came out to represent London as part of a community initiative organised by the K-America Foundation. For the London Hanbok Walk, 16 models were selected to represent the diverse mix of backgrounds we have here in the UK. This video will highlight the beauty and history of Hanbok traditionally as well as in a modern context. I mean, have you ever seen a king in shades, jeans and Air Force Ones? Hanbok has been embedded in Korean culture since there were 3 kingdoms on the Korean peninsula, so to try and cram all of that in one video would not serve the rich history the detail it deserves. For this reason, we will focus on royalty Hanbok and the meaning behind colours, patterns and design. Let's start with the basics. What is the meaning behind the word Hanbok? Han means Korean and bok means clothing. It was first used in an 1881 document to differentiate Korean clothing from foreign clothing. Other words were also used to describe Korean clothing. 우리옷, meaning our clothing, and Joseon-era, which was more commonly used in the north. After the division of Korea, the term Joseon-era replaced other words in the north of Korea. Hanbok dates back to ancient times when the original inhabitants of the Korean peninsula were nomadic and travelled to different areas of the country. It was important for Hanbok to be functional and practical, so it formed 2 parts, the top and bottom, which enabled easier flow of movement. For the upper body, both men and women wear a jogori, which is a long-sleeve jacket. Women's jogori is fastened by a thick string called otgorum. For the bottom, women wear a long flowing skirt called chima, while men wear a wide baggy type of pants called baji. The bagginess of the clothing was designed deliberately to provide maximum comfort of movement. Although the basic composition of Hanbok remains unchanged, the design and structure evolved to reflect the cultural and political ideology of the time it was worn. Before Western clothing became popular, Hanbok was everyday attire for Koreans and worn daily. The roots of the Korean Hanbok can be traced back to the 3 Kingdoms period, which lasted from around 57 BC to 668 AD. The Joseon-era Hanbok is the most common style of Hanbok that is worn today and that we are most familiar with. The Joseon dynasty was a significant turning point in the Hanbok's transformation. The jogori for women was created in a shorter, more fitted style to the women's silhouette, accompanied by a larger chima. Other stylistic changes can be observed in men's attire, such as the brim of gat. A gat is a Korean traditional hat worn by men along with Hanbok during the Joseon dynasty. Gats are cylindrical in shape, with a wide brim on a bamboo frame made from horsehair. The late 19th century was when Korea began to open its doors to international trade, which brought influence from the West into Korea. After Japan retreated from Korea in 1910, Western attire became more popular and many Koreans adopted to more comfortable casual clothes for every day. Towards the end of the Joseon dynasty, an item resembling that of a waistcoat, jokgi, a vest, and magoja, an outer jacket, were designed to protect one's warmth. Bearing in mind this was filmed in late spring, I think the boys did very well to keep their cool. Like the symbolic sloping roof tiles on a traditional Korean house, the hanok, that create delicate flows of lines and angles, the design of the Hanbok is to demonstrate softness and elegance of Korean aesthetics. The bele on the jogori, the bottom line of the sleeve that slope gently across one's arm, contrasts beautifully against the straight angle of the dongjang, the top part of the sleeve. Patterns were used to enhance the beauty of Korean Hanbok and represent the desires and wishes of the wearer. Other symbols such as dragons, phoenixes and tigers were reserved for the Hanbok of royalty and high-ranking officials to show status and power. Royalty had their own kind of attire. Dragon robes, gonryongpo, was a form of everyday clothing for emperors to show their wealth and rank. You may have seen the red-coloured robes with embroidered emblems of dragons in K-period dramas. Here we have our very own 21st century King of K-Town London, Hanguk. Red was reserved for the king, whilst blue was worn by the Crown Prince and future Crown Prince, beautifully displayed by our Prince Mikey, artist and author. These subtle differences in detail show the importance of social order and ranking in the Korean Empire to establish respect and ruling command. Daenggi is a type of upper garment for women with titles such as queens, crown princesses, and court ladies in Hanbok. Modelling this is the queen of New Modern, Hanguk Hapa. The characteristics of daenggi is to emphasize the beauty of hanbok's curvy lines. Compared to a normal joguri, daenggi has two gorum attached to make a ribbon. Women used hairstyles to show their status in royalty, ranging from wearing halo wigs to a slick bun adorned with ornamental hairpins according to their rank and marital status. Ancient Korean female styles of braided hair started during the Baekje-era, when Confucianism beliefs prohibited women to cut their hair as it was perceived as a gift from their parents. Of the several accessories used, daenggi was the most popular and commonly used by all ages. It is a ribbon tied to the end of a braid, styled differently to show whether a woman is married or not. Before marriage, girls would braid their hair into a long single braid with a jebiburi daenggi that had pointed endings and where the ribbon got its name from. As I am single, I wore a daenggi at the bottom of my single braid. Hanbok has undergone a series of transformations in its 5,000-year-old history within Korean culture that has taken influence from the current cultural period of the time. While it may continue to change, hanbok remains as an intangible cultural heritage which not only preserves Korean traditional clothes but also shows Korea's unique artistic significance that cannot be replicated, only admired. Hanbok is Korean, and this was London Hanbok Walk.